Hi, I'm Daisy,
Hi, I'm David.
and we're the MSA Crusaders. Hello, we're here with the MSA Crusaders, and today we have Jessica. She's going to be sharing about her dad, our MSA angel named Steven, and his battle with MSA. So, Jessica, can you tell us a little bit about your dad before he was diagnosed with MSA?
Before he was diagnosed with MSA, he was super lively and funny. I always joked how he was the mayor. He knew everyone everywhere we went. It was, you know, inconvenient at times when you're going grocery shopping or something or trying to just have dinner. Um, I mean, being at the job he was for 40 years, he met a lot of people. But he was very personable and I think that I loved that. He was funny. He was always joking around. He always had a new nickname for me. Like it was great, and we had good times.
40 years is a long time.
It was a long time at one job. Yeah,
That's almost how old I am.
You said he was what was his profession again?
he was a mechanic, an
Oh,
auto mechanic. Yeah.
so did he come home and fix cars at home too, or just at work?
Um, he would bring them into the shop if he needed to. He like why one year I know he was joking, I don't know, it was like 18 or 19, and it was like, Jess, I got you your birthday present. And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, I got you an oil change. I was like, oh, that's so nice. Thanks, Dad.
Oh,
Um,
That's a true father right there.
yeah, so
that's
I mean,
cool.
yeah. But he would always do like he'd notice that like my check engine light was on or something. I swear he must have just like randomly started my car all the time. And he'd be like, you need this, you need this, you need this. I'm like, okay.
So, can you share the story of your dad's journey with multiple system atrophy?
The first that I know of, it was probably about 10 years before he passed. He started getting a tremor in his left hand, his dominant hand. And that and vertigo. He had like really bad vertigo, and they were checking his inner ear and doing all of that. Um, he also had some like intestinal. They had what was it?
Uh,
I can't remember what that's called. There's like a but he had intestinal issues too, prior to, and that was like the main ones that I remember in the beginning.
He had GI issues, gastrointestinal.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Hmm.
There was something specific, but I can't
Okay.
remember it.
and when was he diagnosed? How old
From
was he?
right. From what I know, it was probably about 5 years before he passed. Um,
And how old was he?
when he was diagnosed, would have been 58-ish.
That's
Right,
about the average.
so he passed in 2016,
Yep.
and you're thinking symptoms probably were in the ballpark of 2000, give or take 2011.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So, and MSA, it's known for its progressive nature. Could you describe how the disease affected your dad and his life and his mental health as it progressed?
Yeah, at first, like the first 5 years seemed to go by, pretty smooth. I mean, it was mostly just the tremor and didn't really think anything of it. And then, it was a lot of balance issues. His anxiety was very high. He was on a lot of meds for anxiety specifically. I was talking about how the he would get so anxious, he would put himself like into AFib. He would get so worked up, shaky, like when he was like, I need to call 911.
Mm.
um but he wouldn't really, we're like, my mom and I were always like, what's wrong, like what's going, and he wouldn't tell us, so we didn't really know what was going on 100%.
Wow. Did your mom ever talk about him having REM sleep orders, or disorders where he shouting out and acting out in his dreams?
You know what, I should ask if she did. I actually don't know. I know he did at one point have trouble sleeping, and he would have to like sit up um like an hour before waking up, before actually standing. I
Hmm.
remember that was like towards when
Blood
he really
pressure.
had some difficulty with the vertigo and stuff going
Hmm.
on. But I should double check on the REM sleep because I don't remember anything, but they might not have mentioned it.
David and I both beat our spouses up in our sleep.
We do not endorse beating up spouses for the record.
No, we don't
Not on
even know
purpose.
we're doing it, you know.
Yeah.
But in like caring for someone with a terminal illness like MSA, it can be very emotional and physical demanding on the caregivers as well as the patient. How do you and your family navigate the emotional aspects of this disease's progression?
Yeah, that was very difficult. I think that's why I'm partially into mental health as much as I am. Just because like I said, we didn't know what was going on as much, and we wanted to be there for him, but we didn't know how to be there for him, so it was hard. And then when he did end up in rehab and then hospice, we felt guilty, super guilty, because he wanted to be home, and we knew that, but we needed to work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to pay for the house.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like it was a lot of guilt for us on like the emotional end, just because we
Um,
wanted to help, but we couldn't.
yeah,
You
yeah,
didn't know how to and work to have bills to pay.
yeah.
Yeah.
This was me. I felt a burden because my husband had to stop working to take care of me. He stopped working 3 years ago to
Yeah.
take
I
care of
definitely
me.
had thought about it, but I just didn't know how to go about it, I think.
And I think it's it's difficult for a man. So
Yeah.
he probably didn't tell how um, things were in his mind. He probably kept them to himself a lot.
He definitely kept to himself because, like I said, we didn't know for a very long time what it was. Um,
So
Did, did
I
you
don't.
Made a
did you
difference.
notice him his when we talk about his the psychology? I mean, did you notice his the way he thought, the way he spoke, how he spoke, why he spoke, the reasoning behind him speaking? Like, did you notice those things deteriorating over?
Oh yeah,
e-
his
Even though
demeanor was
even though you didn't know for like four
yeah,
or 5 years, but did you see that? Like you said,
his
demeanor,
demeanor
thought
was
process.
so low. He had a really hard time. He would be so anxious, his stomach would hurt so bad that he just like didn't eat. He actually lost. You can see from the pictures. I should send you one from before and one from after. He lost 100 pounds in a year because he was so anxious, so worked up. He wasn't moving around. I kept telling him, I'm like, you need to move, you need to move. And he even had a physical therapist at the house, but his demeanor was just so low. He just did not want to do anything. Um, and I think that made it really hard too.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you'll know this answer or not, but losing a loved one to this debilitating disease or like any debilitating disease is undoubtedly a difficult experience. How did you and your family approach discussions about end of life care and decisions, like directive advances, things like that? Will,
So for him, I it was really my mom's decision for always. But they did have a discussion with him as it was getting closer on what he wanted. And then we had that incident where he was in the ER. He went into VTech, and the doctor was like, "I know you just started discussing a DNR, but you should highly think about it because it could be really bad for him if we don't have a DNR and we have to try to resuscitate. It could be we break ribs, all of that stuff to try and get him
Hmm.
back. And I asked my mom because I didn't know what his wishes were at the time. I was like, we need to figure that out. And his was to have a DNR. And my mom was thinking, should I grant that? Should I not? Like, it's hard because yeah, you don't want him to suffer, but we're obviously going to miss him too. But I was like, Mom, we don't know what he's going through. We can see it. We don't physically know what he's going through. So if he wants a DNR, we should grant him a DNR. Because I feel like if I was in his position,
hmm
I'd probably want a DNR as well.
I have that and a lot of advanced directives myself. It was very hard for my husband to see me go get a notary to make all that paperwork legal, but
Yeah.
you know, you need to decide while you can.
Yeah. And I think what we didn't completely understand what a DNR meant. They said that it like makes them comfortable at the very least. And I think that was the hardest part for us, that we were like thinking that it was just going to be so chaotic and painful or something, but a DNR meant more than just that. And I think that made it a little bit more comforting to be like, yeah, he should have a DNR.
And can you talk about the final stages of his battle with MSA and the impact it had on all of y'all's lives?
It was yeah, it was definitely hard to see him like that. Like I said, he was so lively, and you'd go in and he'd rarely talk. I went into the ICU that one time and he pretended to sleep. And then he'd like peek one eye open and he'd be like, Jess, you can go. Like, and it was hard because I think he just didn't want me to like sit around and watch him sleep.
Oh,
um, you know, uh, but he would probably didn't have the energy to talk a lot. And it was really hard, like to just having him sit there watch TV. That just wasn't him. So that made it really hard. That was kind of what I explained to mom a lot, is that it's not him. Like, we can't just keep that going because that's what we want.
I agree with that. That's a very profound statement. As much as as much as I keep going back to my father, as much as I wanted my father around,
Yeah.
he told me that he prayed for the day that he would pass from some other separate disorder he had.
Yeah.
But every 14 years I saw his pain, and I became comfortable with the fact that I could actually see it, and therefore, when he says, I wish for that day, that it
Yeah.
made sense, and it would be
yeah.
selfish for myself or others, not in every
Yeah.
not in every circumstance, but
Yeah. Yeah.
especially these really bad ones like MSA, where we want someone around because we're afraid to lose them, but
Yeah.
we're actually hurting them more than we're helping them. That's a very
Right.
big statement you just said.
It really is. And your grief is a complex in as an individual journey. How do you cope with the loss of your father? And were there any support systems or resources that helped you and your family during that challenging time?
Yeah. So I remember we were kind of talking about some of these. I've been thinking about it a little bit. First was, as much as I missed him, obviously, it was very relieving, because I knew that he was comfortable now.
Yeah.
That was one thing. That was one thing my mom and I first said to each other. I'm an only child, so I had my mom as support, and I had my husband. Um, and they were both very, very supportive. My dad's brother, my uncle, lived right next door, and he was very supportive, and they were so close. Um, and I think that helped a lot to have everybody. He had so many friends. We went to his funeral, and I mean, just lines of people out. It lasted the entire whatever 2 hours that we scheduled. Just meeting people from the ones that he worked with to ones in high school. Um, and that was comforting. I actually had what was it? Like a life celebration afterwards at the
Yeah.
house, because I felt like that's just what he would have wanted. Um, that was more him. He wanted everyone to joke around and talk to each other and
Yeah. That
remember everything.
it's not really a funeral. I think it's just depressing, and
Yeah,
that's what I want for my family. I want them to have a celebration of my life.
yeah. We had a lot of food. My dad was obsessed with food.
Well, what was his favorite food?
Oh, I don't even know if he had a favorite food, I'll be honest.
He liked a lot of things.
Steak
Huh?
There
probably,
you go.
corn on
Yeah.
the cob, chicken. I mean, all of it. He ate all the time. Like I said, he was like 300 pounds almost, and he had lost 100 pounds in a year.
Hmm.
So that was obviously a sign, like he wasn't eating anymore, and that wasn't him for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some unique challenges, yes, about being not only a daughter but seeing someone you love going through MSA, both as a caregiver per se, and as somebody who is like right now trying to be an advocate for MSA. What are some unique challenges in uh, being a caregiver?
In being a caregiver, well, first of all, some unique challenges now is when I talk about it, people don't know what I'm talking about. So advocating can be very hard. I've done a few different things like, donate. I've done virtual 5Ks to donate money to. Um, so that's the biggest thing. When I was going through it, though, the unique challenges would have been, I was setting time aside to see him all the time. And I think, some people had a hard time wrapping their head around that. But I felt like he had to be lonely. Like, even if he didn't want to see me for a very long time, I just go by and say hi.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it was hard for people to be like, oh, you want to go visit him? Like, again, didn't you just see him?
Hmm.
And I was like, I know, but he's lonely. He doesn't have any. My mom wouldn't visit him every day, every single night after work. So,
Yeah, I mean, everybody's challenges are different. Some could be financial, some could be physical,
yeah.
some could be mental.
I
I
mean, we
mean,
definitely had some financial struggles.
mhm.
My mom did have to sell the house after he passed, but um, I think that was for the best, just because it wouldn't have been. And the Medicare, what was it, Medicare, Medicaid? He actually didn't even get Medicaid until after he passed away, and it retroactivated.
Oh no.
And long-term disability was another challenge. They had initially denied him. Um, it was right around, I think, that car accident where he wasn't really walking very well anymore, but he was still kind of working, that they had denied him long-term disability. They did go back on that and granted eventually. So those were some challenges.
I'd hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of your best memories with your father, through his process with MSA? Now,
His
obviously, going back in time because you didn't know at the very end what the name was, but
Yeah.
during those 5-ish years, what were some of the most cherished memories you had with him?
I still would try to, so he loved, we're in New Hampshire. We loved going to Maine. And even though you could tell like the long car ride might be hard for him or something, we would go and do things that we used to do in Maine all the time. We'd go to short sands and we go to wells and all of that. And that was big for him. And I think that he loved the ocean. I think he probably would have lived there if we could have moved there at some point. And I think just seeing him so happy there just was and that's why like I still wanted to bring him, even though I knew he was
Hmm.
struggling, because I was like, you're so happy here, and I love seeing you happy like that.
That's something I do with my family. They just took me to Florida,
Oh my
and
gosh.
there are beach wheelchairs, so
They
I
have
know.
very wide tires.
Yeah,
yeah.
I had thought about that eventually too, but we never got around to it. Yeah, that's great.
But you tried though. That's what matters.
Yes.
So how does somebody as a caregiver such as yourself and your mother, how easy, I mean, how do you transition back to life after MSA?
My job was actually very supportive. I was serving at the time. And I said I wanted to take a week off, and she's like, "Are you sure you don't want to take 2 weeks off? Whatever." I'm just one of those people that I'll just sit with it for so long and I'll just play it over and over and over again in my head. So after a week, I did go back to work and it was hard. It was still very hard. But I felt like if I didn't, that it just would have been harder. I kind of had to like
Yeah.
push through that. I think my mom did the same too. She's kind of the same way. But yeah, the financial struggle was definitely part of it. I had forgotten also that in July of that year, I pushed my wedding up because we were supposed to get married in 2017 to July 2016. And my dad was able to be there. That's on the
That's
photo.
wonderful.
Yes.
I
So
know
I
that
rented an ambulance from the hospice to get him there. And it was only, I don't even know, it was only like not even half a mile away, maybe a quarter mile.
I noticed the picture you sent to us is a very good picture of your wedding.
Yes, and that one's actually candid. The girl was like, I just was taking like practice photos and you had that. So, yeah, I was very happy to have him there too.
I bet.
Um, and the memory of that is super helpful.
I bet. I bet that's really a good, great memory to have.
Yeah.
That's I mean that's I don't know where I want to go with that. That was
Sorry, I went like off the.
no, but that's something that you have to think about. You have to try to do if you can do and are you able to do
Yeah.
because you don't know if you have another day, let alone another month, another year. You know, those are very hard decisions that have to be thought. Just not end of life care. Just not like, hey, how, you know, you
Oh
want to be
yeah, for him
cremated, you
to
want to be
like.
buried, but hey, you know, uh, how can we? You know, my daughters are 18, 11,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm in a very similar situation of you know, like Stephen, your father was talking about. So
Yep.
yeah, very, very interesting.
I was just gonna say that's my motto. You know that. You never know how much time you have left, an hour, a day, a week, a year.
Yep.
Uh, so
Absolutely.
live every day as it's your last day.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I wanted to make sure he was there because we had originally planned it for October 1st, replanned it for October 1st, and he passed away on the 9th. So it was nice that we had moved it up again to July 30th, and I planned it within a month so that he
Oh
could be there
wow,
with just like
that's
closest friends
awesome.
and stuff. But it was absolutely worth it. I had gave
Yes,
him a tuxedo t-shirt
I saw that. That was
because I
really
knew
cute.
he wouldn't put like a dress shirt on. But yeah, it was great. And I'm glad I could have him there. I think he was very happy to be there too, because I don't think he thought he was gonna make it.
Was he able to, in some way, participate in the wedding?
Yeah, so I had him just at the end and then like he gave me away. So like he, like I kissed him on the forehead and I didn't like wheel him down or anything because I didn't want
Right.
to make it too much, but and it was a hot day. It was July.
Mhm.
Um, not the day that I would have picked, just for being so hot. So we just kind of made it quick and then we had pictures and yeah, so it was good. But
That's
he was
awesome.
definitely happy to be there and he's in the pictures and that made me happy.
That's the best.
Yeah.
What is a message of hope you would have for any of the listeners as far as dealing with a loss of a loved one? Say either dealing with the care, long-term care or short-term care of somebody with MSA, and also the passing away of somebody. Like what's a just one message of hope you get? Word of advice.
Do what's best for you and your loved one. People are going to tell you, "Oh, I did this. Oh, I did this," or "You should do this." And, like I said, I really wanted to be at home and I wanted him at home, but I knew I couldn't do that. And yes, it made me very guilty, but that was what was best for us at the time. And I still believe that even though he probably didn't want to be there, that it was the best for him. He was getting much better care than what we would have provided him at home
Hmm.
if we were working at the same time.
Yeah, I told my family, I said the last thing I want is for my family to bankrupt themselves
Yes.
on my behalf. I mean, if there was a glimmer of hope for MSA
Yeah.
for myself, you know, those that have it, maybe
Yeah.
maybe bankrupting would be an idea, but when there's absolutely no cure, no
Right.
hope, it's we will spend as much time as we have left together and make the best of it.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, knowing your limits, knowing what you can and cannot do.
Yeah.
If you try too hard, you might make things worse. You know.
It was a very difficult decision and I didn't like it. He would always ask to come home and
Mhm.
that it made me feel very guilty. But I knew that we couldn't do it. We couldn't make it work. Um, so I just that to make myself feel better and hopefully him feel better, we came and visit him all the time as much as
And,
we could. So
and, you know that's not really spoke about too much too. You know, those with MSA and other diseases and disorders, the degradation of the mental capacity in the brain. You know, we might be saying, "Hey, bring me home," but we don't know what we're talking about. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I
Right.
mean, hallucinations and all these other things is part of this, and so you got to be able to separate the real from the fiction and make those
yeah,
Yeah.
informed decisions. Sure,
yeah.
excellent. Are there any lessons you would have gained from as a caretaker from your father's experience with MSA? I know we might have, you know, might feel sorry, we might feel bad, we've done some things, made those tough decisions that we have to as caregivers, as family. Any lessons learned that you would pass on to somebody else?
I think what Daisy said is huge. Living, you don't know what you have left, a day, a week, a month. Um, I know one of the last times that he ended up being in the hospital, that time he fell, I was mad at him. I was upset that he didn't use his walker when he was supposed to be, and he fell. And that was hard. I looked back on that a lot for a very long time, upset with myself for being mad at him. Um, but I now I look at it and like I have a almost 4-year old now, and I try to enjoy every moment with her. And my husband, a daddy's girl, I was a daddy's girl, so I love seeing it. And that's definitely huge, is living every moment that you can, for sure.
I make,
Absolutely.
I make my husband mad all the time by not using my walker or whatever. I stand up and he goes, "What are you doing?"
Yep.
'Cause I
Yep.
have had a lot of falls, so
Yep. I got very upset with
I
him. I had
understand
to go
that.
to work, so I was upset. But I look back on it and I was like, "Ugh, I didn't need to get that mad."
Right.
you know.
One last question for you, Jess. Is there anything you'd like to share about the legacy of your father, Stephen? Um, about the impact he had on your life or the lives of others. You mentioned he's the mayor. I mean, I wrote that down. I
That's
wish I could have a
crazy.
nickname of the mayor. I got a lot of other nicknames I can't say. A lot of these come from my wife too. But that nickname says a lot. But
Yeah.
is there anything you like to share about his legacy and the impact he had on just not only your family but others, other people themselves?
I feel like he was really big on living every moment. We always went camping. We did all of these things. He wanted to go out. He wanted to go do things. And I think that's why he knew so many people. Um, like I said, he was the mayor. My husband didn't believe me until we went to one of the fairs and we sat there for like 2 hours while people passed us and talked to him. But he was just so lively and so funny, goofing around all the time. My husband reminds me very much of him. And
Oh,
I love that. And anyone that knew it, he loved cars, he loved motorcycles. I always have like Harley Davidson everything all over the place. I have a tattoo, all of that stuff. But that's, yeah, he just, everyone he knew, he talked to strangers at the grocery store, and you're just like, who is that? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, then why are you
um,
talking to him? You practically gave him your social security number. Like, what are you
Mm,
doing?
hmm So
That's just who he was.
you said he was a mechanic, and
Yep.
you mentioned Harleys and stuff like that. So the most important question I'm going to ask, the most important about his legacy, and this all falls on you. Okay, you got one chance here. Was he a Ford person or a Chevrolet?
So that's difficult, I will say, because he definitely owned a Chevy, a Nova.
Oh, what a great guy! Seriously, yeah,
Yeah,
there you
he
go.
owned a Nova, but he worked for and owned a lot of Fords as well. So
Well,
I honestly don't know.
if you look, he was a wise man because if you want to make a lot of money and stay in business, you work on the vehicle that's going to break down the most, which is Fords.
Boom. Yeah,
hi.
so his
Hence the
favorite was
nickname.
a Chevrolet. So, well, we'll
Excellent.
go with that, I guess.
Found on road dad, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
not a road dad.
Chevelle.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, excellent. Any last
Well,
words you want to mention at all about your father and his and MSA?
I just think, Daisy, that was a huge point. Living every moment is huge. And sometimes stepping back and um, thinking about your needs, like your wellness and all of that. There's many parts to it. And as a family, we need to, or, you know, make sure everyone has their needs met. It's hard. And, but yeah, stepping back sometimes and thinking about that.
and along with that, I always say, don't take life for granted.
Yeah.
Don't take that you can brush your teeth, you can shower yourself, you
Yes.
can do
So
things on your
huge.
own
Yep.
because it's gonna come a time. I'm getting there where we're gonna need somebody to do everything for us.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on today and spending some time with us and sharing about your father. It was really
Hmm.
great. I feel like I got to know him. I
Yes.
really do.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica, very much.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, this was amazing.